They're bad, they're boys, and occasionally they talk about running. Yes, it's the Bad Boy Running Podcast with your hosts, Jody Rainsford and David Heller.
Bye. Hello!
Hey!
Hello, New Year again. Double New Year, triple New Year. We've won New Year, haven't we?
I think we have. It's very difficult. Have we?
I mean, to be fair, we probably haven't properly New Yeared as people because, what was that about? Although, I do like Alicia Keys.
What did you do for New Year? Oh, did you watch? I'm intrigued. What happened in the Hellard household for New Year?
Not much, really. It seems as if COVID truly has been ripping apart most of the people we know. So we didn't get up to much. We've Mum and Bee's had COVID. Two of our different friendship groups that had COVID. Ross McDonald, the famous Ross McDonald's future mother-in-law, my driver, their whole family's had COVID. It just seems that this new strain is just so much more prevalent and really is something to be taken quite seriously.
Yeah.
But it's a small price to pay, isn't it? Not having a crazy New Year.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, whatever you did will be more exciting than what we did. Our New Year, literally, every year, New Year gets less and less impressive, and I think this year was the worst so far. Essentially, New Year for us was Libby watching Bridgerton and me sat next to her reading, and that was it. And Bridgerton, she finished watching Bridgerton about a minute past. It finished last episode about a minute past midnight, so we kind of missed the fact it was midnight, and she got up and went, "See you later then," and that's it, and went to bed. That was our New Year.
She didn't even say Happy New Year.
Not even that. Well, I said, "Oh, happy," as she went to bed. "Oh, Happy New Year," and that's it. She went to bed. Perfect. That was Happy New Year in the Rainsford household.
I don't even know what Bridgerton is, but
what? You don't know what Bridgerton is? Imagine.
No.
All right, imagine this. Imagine if I don't know. Did you ever like things like Pride and Prejudice? When it was on with Mr. Darcy, stuff like that. Those kind of period dramas. Are you into that kind of thing? I wouldn't imagine that's your kind of thing, really.
If I ever watch any of them, then I'm sure I'm going to love them. Sure, I just haven't quite got around to it yet. But as soon as I do,
you haven't got around to it yet. Okay. Well,
yeah.
If you watch things like Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibility, like Jane Austen type stuff, and you think, do you know what this really needs? This needs a lot more shagging in it. Then that is exactly so. Bridgerton is basically it's produced by Shonda Rhimes.
There's Pride and Prejudice and Orgasms.
It's like something like that, but it's produced by Shonda Rhimes. So it's quite. I would say it is a kind of a modern updating of a period that is like.
Is she any relation to Buster, out of interest?
No,
you say her name as if... Okay.
Buster, fucking hell. How do you even think that? No, Shonda Rhimes. Shonda Rhimes used to be... she was on ABC, but she wrote things like Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, okay.
And her stuff's great. Really, really good. And so it's kind of like it's kind of like what... It's like a more diverse...
A modern old thing.
Period drama. So, like, the problem with period dramas is that it's just full of white people, isn't it, normally? Old white people and young white people who defer to those old white people.
Who are also disgusted by things that no one's disgusted by anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of still is the thing, because it tries to keep with the period thing, but it kind of updated in a really interesting way. And it has things like, so it's still a period drama, and it follows it's a Regency drama, so it follows a period of when sort of the court before Queen Charlotte, who was married to George III, who of course was mad.
Madness, yeah.
Mad. And it's really interesting. It's based on a book, and it's based on like a gossip column that scandalises the court, and it actually brings to life. It's it's the kind of thing that the Daily Mail and the Telegraph go on about, oh, this is typical woke programming. It doesn't do it justice. The thing is, and they're picking on the wrong bits really, because it is very good, but it doesn't. There's really like nice bits in it, like all like the period music is modern music, but there's you hear like things like. Bad Guy played on a harpsichord, and it works really, really well. But there's a lot of.
It sounds like the most try-hard thing.
No, it sounds like that's the problem. As I'm saying this, this sounds. I should never.
Does Darcy do a rap or?
But it's actually quite good. Like there's
It's so good that you were reading your book.
It's more visceral. Well, I'm not really into period dramas and stuff like that. The fundamental thing is about all these period dramas, as much as you try and update it, fundamentally, that all the conflict in it happens because someone will not explain something to someone else that if they just explained it would solve all of the problems, but they don't. So they hold it in and go, oh, I can't possibly tell you why I can't do this. And that goes on for like 4 or 5 episodes. And then when they explain it, they're like, oh, was that the only reason? Fine.
But that's Curb Your Enthusiasm, isn't it? He just has to say, this is what's happened, I'm sorry, or just not do the thing that he's going to do.
I got to say, we watched the latest season of Curb Your Enthusiasm at the start. And I've got to say, it's the best one yet. Where he wears the Make America Great hat again in order to get people to make sure that they don't bother him or sit next to him. And then when he starts his spite store, his spite coffee shop to try and get the person out of business who banned him from his store. That is incredible.
I've only ever seen a couple of programs of it, but maybe I should.
Oh, no, what? Have you? What?
Yeah.
It's insane. I definitely agree with you. When you first start watching, you're like, this is like the British Empire. This is, like all of this can be solved if you just, 1, don't do the thing you're doing, or 2, just explain it properly.
Yeah.
But it's this one, he's got a friend, Jeff Garland, who is just brilliant. And he has a wife who's like really aggressive and hates Larry and everything. And they bring in loads of celebrities, so like Ted Danson's in it, and loads of other,
Ted Danson, he's a huge name right now. He is.
He is still, isn't he?
Is he? What?
Yeah, of course he is.
What?
He is. He's still massive. He's still huge in terms of TV.
Is he?
What was they called? Is it The Good Place he was in? Didn't he win an Emmy for that?
That's terrible.
Wasn't he was in that as well? I think it's amazing how well he's doing, actually, considering, he used to, it was funny because we were watching something, Frida watching something on Netflix or something, and it had Kirstie Alley in it, like back in the 80s, and you think, wow, like Kirstie Alley, that's going back some time, isn't it? And but Ted's still going strong.
Well, bringing it back to what you were saying about MAGA. Wow.
Yeah, so we're just filming this as
the morning after.
As the morning after the attempted coup, as it were.
I still can't quite get my head around it. When I first read the Capitol building, because my friend Yin Yang texted me from the States, and I assumed there was a Capitol building in every state. I thought it was maybe the Georgian Capitol building.
Oh, like the state Senate?
Yeah, I didn't realise it was the equivalent of the Houses of Parliament. And that is what really makes you think, wow, this is almost Guy Fawkes level of revolution.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? But then, so you hear all that, and then when you see the photos, I mean, like, some of those photos were, like, of the guy sat in Nancy Pelosi's office.
What's he thinking?
And then the guy, I know, it's like, you do realise that they're taking...
You're going to jail forever for this, for that photo.
The guy who nicked the speaker's podium and was walking out with it, and then they had all the guys dressed as Vikings.
Yeah, the level of controversy about a pencil being stolen from Buckingham Palace. Now this is good, and that's the thing. Brixie and I were talking about this morning, and if you remember the London riots, not the Brixton riots, where the youth just suddenly realised that there's nothing we could actually do as a society to stop them doing what they wanted.
Yeah.
And there was one poor soul who stole a bag of rice as his looting, and he went to jail for it because they wanted to throw the book at
They threw the book at everyone, didn't they? They threw the book at everyone.
I guess in America that's never happened. They've not even slapped the wrist of anyone involved in any of this, and so it does feel as if they probably feel as if they can just get away.
Well,
with
wait a minute. We need to we need to be more accurate. Anyone who's white, we have to say.
True.
I think the response would be slightly different, and it was slightly different when BLM were there. The difference is that you didn't have the head of state inciting it literally moments before.
Yeah, but that's a crazy. There's such a direct correlation.
He put it together. He did the speech about it. He incited it, and then just left them to get on with it. I mean, it's really difficult to believe. And then it's really difficult to believe when you think the last time there was an invasion of the Capitol building was in 1812 when the British raided it and tried to burn it down.
Wow.
I mean,
Look, we've lost our record.
I know! We need to get back over it.
But I was quite surprised because I just assumed whenever you walk past the Houses of Parliament, you see policemen with massive guns.
Yeah.
And you remember that in the UK because you don't really see policemen anywhere. You might occasionally on incredibly high alert see one in a train station. Yeah. But seeing someone with a gun is really quite shocking still and quite jarring.
Yeah.
Whereas in the States, because there's so many guns,
that's the difference. People walking around with them. So,
but I assumed that the whole of the Capitol building would be surrounded by armed police or armed guards of some sort, and that's what amazed me. That actually they just got in with a little bit of pepper spray. Well, quite a lot of pepper spray, to be fair, but
yeah, it was weird. I mean, it's weird because one of the things that they're obviously saying is that they kind of weren't prepared for it, but. You saw, when all of the people, congregating outside.
Yeah.
And,
and people trying to storm areas of voting booths and things, and recounts where exactly the same thing happened.
Yeah, exactly. When they're banging on windows in order to get people to recount, threatening. I mean, the fact is that bit by bit, it's been allowed. It's been allowed. And the problem is that, literally moments before, you had senators in the Senate itself still fueling that by refusing to accept the electoral college votes.
Yeah.
And so you're like, well, what do you think? Like, what did you expect?
And actually, I was watching it thinking, as long as, and it's a shame that I think 4 people have died so far, and that's obviously always sad, but this almost needed to happen for something to actually change, because so far, if things proceeded, then Trump was going to leave office and nothing would have changed in the political system. And actually all those flaws and all those errors and all that disbelief and lack of trust and empowerment these groups have would go unchecked. And they needed something like this to actually pin on Trump and pin on the way that false truths and the media are disseminating these lies. And they needed something like this to actually make the Republican Party to say, look, this is what you've done. Like, you've supported this, you've fought this. This is all, you've got to take responsibility for this now.
It's enabling. The thing is, it's not, I mean, Trump itself is the bad thing, but it's his enablers. That's what's really there's people who at so many points along the way could have stopped this, could have said, no, this won't, you've gone too far with this. But he's been enabled to the point of, where people are still questioning the result. And it's like Pence has had to go like, no. And that's really it. And then, at some point, someone says no. And then this happens. But this is typical. This is typical, isn't it, of what happens in the Senate. And I think particularly with Republicans as well, is that it's not until they become personally affected then all of a sudden this becomes a cause to them. And this was, I think this is like a massive wake-up call, the fact that actually, you are you're going to be put in harm's way by this, by the people who are supposed to be your own supporters as well.
Yeah, and yeah, just amazing, and great episode for this to happen on. Given that we're speaking to, we haven't even introduced you to who we're going to talk to later. I mean, the Sharapovas, just amazing people, and they're here to talk to us about their whole journey from being brought up in a system of systematic doping through escaping to America. So that is to come. We probably should drop in some running news, but there just hasn't really been any over Christmas and New Year, has there?
Weirdly, I've got, from a personal perspective, I have managed to go. I went for my first. It's not a run. This is the closest I can get to. I went for a walk yesterday. My first post-Gout 2 walk.
Oh, mate, congrats! And how far can you do it without?
Well, the thing is, when you get gout, it feels weird because when you first get it, you don't think you've got it. It feels like you've sort of fractured your toe or something like that. So you go through this period where you have. It mirrors how you get it, how it feels when you get it. When you first get it, you think, oh, I've broken my foot or I've fractured my toe or something like that. And then you get the pinpoint pain, and then you get all the inflammation. And so it's going the other way now. Yeah, all the inflammation's gone, the pinpoint pain's gone, and now it just feels like I've fractured my toe again, which means that it's on its way out. So you can kind of, even though it's kind of painful, you can run on it because there's nothing actually wrong with it.
Are you looking forward to the bliss of a fractured toe? Oh, the pain of a fractured toe.
Oh, I can't wait to get
kind release.
So I can actually run. I can actually run on it now. So I can get back to actually refusing to run because it's too cold outside.
It's too cold.
It's just having the option of being able to run that I wanted. There was never any real intention to run. I think hasn't the in running news that the BBRC group have decided upon several races for next year?
Yes, yeah, I believe so.
I think that's progress. Of which one of them is Beer Lovers.
August bank holiday.
Beer Lovers is BLM, isn't it?
I never thought about that. No, I mean, I'm a furious supporter of both. Although I don't know if I don't know if I have the same emotional attachment to the two. That's true. It's BLM. Wow.
Thoughts of that?
Yeah, we're definitely not going to go themes to the themes. That could go terribly wrong. Beer Lovers Marathon. So if you don't know it, listeners, we've done an episode about it in the past. We've spoken about it every year we've gone because it is the best race on earth. Happens in Liège. It's, I think, the penultimate weekend or the last weekend of August. Get it in your diary now. No matter where you are in the world, put it in your diary. We're going to be going with at least 100 people.
Yeah,
and it's just so fun.
Have you looked at when you might be vaccinated? You know, you can get there's a calculator that works out, you know, based on your age and anything else when you're possibly likely.
I'll get mine before you, will I?
Well, you should do. You are much older than me.
It's true, but I don't know if it works that directly. Whether it's correlated to the number of places you can get vaccinated in your local area, or
the first what's it called? Oxford vaccine came to Haywards Heath.
So you know the person who was first here?
No, I don't know. I think it was. Unfortunately, it was only just staff there, but yeah, I suppose the reason why I was saying that is because when you talk about the BLM, I don't know whether they're going to put any restrictions on whether you can travel or not, whether you've got a vaccine or not. But it's between. I'm supposed to be getting vaccinated according to this calculator between middle of August and end of October. That's when it's put down from when I.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Man, that's our wedding. Oh, well, we'll see. Hopefully.
Oh, everyone's invite's dependent on whether they've been vaccinated.
Well, it could. You never know. It could be. Yeah.
No, that's it. Have you?
But hopefully there'll come a point where once everyone below the age of 60 is vaccinated, there's just going to be a mass, as we mentioned last time, a mass party for everyone. And that if you're not vaccinated at that stage, life will hopefully be returning back to normal anyway.
I think it was like once they've got these 14 million vaccinations over, then it's something like 9 out of 10 people who were at risk were unlikely, who would have died as a result of it are protected against it. So yeah, if you had a choice, would you go Pfizer or Oxford? I think I prefer Oxford.
Always Oxford, obviously.
Oxford, it's just a better class. Better class of vaccine.
I did my exams with Oxford. I prefer the blue colour Oxfords. I mean, the Pfizer blue is, it's a joke.
Only in Britain can we have two universities who compete against each other and have the same colour. Just different shades. I mean,
different shades of posh.
Yeah, exactly.
But before we go into interview, I wanted to talk. I've been reaching out to a few of our previous guests. We're going to be promoting some old episodes again. I spoke to Harvey. Do you remember Harvey? A lovely Harvey.
Yeah, Harvey Sweetland. Yeah.
Yeah, and he said he's actually had a documentary out, which I wasn't aware of. And with lockdown, obviously, it's won loads of awards though. It's called Like Harvey, Like Son. We always talk about how running documentaries are pretty dire because
they're about running.
They're about running, and at some point, someone's foot hurts. Maybe they cry a bit.
It's engineered drama, isn't it? Yeah.
Then they change the music tone, and suddenly, oh wow, I can't believe this is joyous. But Harvey's one, he was crewed by his dad, and that's what the film's about. And I think, and that in its thinking about crewing with your own dad, that is a challenge already, right?
Oh, I mean, the thing is, to me, that sounds like a comedy. We were talking about Curb Your Enthusiasm earlier, but I
mean, I don't think the dad decides all of the nutrition and sets the targets and the plan. I think Harvey has control. Well, Harvey definitely has control of that. But he was doing the Appalachian Trail, so that is like a beast.
Oh yeah.
Of a trail to take on. And it's a really, really nice documentary because I just don't know if any individual really has a completely rounded relationship with their father. And even if there is, there's still the dynamic of you're a child to them. And
well, that's it. The thing is, like, you go, oh yeah, he's set the plan. I'm like, yeah, he might have set the plan, but if your dad is in the support crew, the execution of it is the issue, isn't it?
Imagine the stories you're going to get from them, or how long it's going to take for things to. I mean, my dad's actually would be far better at organising stuff than I would because he's ex-military and he'd be absolutely on it. But
my dad would constantly mention how other people were in front of me, even though I wouldn't be in a race. He'd be telling me how other people are much further than me, how someone else is probably doing better, how I look terrible. It's like, thanks for all of that.
But this one's really good because Harvey actually was diagnosed when he was younger, wrongly, as being, I can't remember the right terminology for it now, but basically being a bit dim-witted, shall we say?
Yeah.
And
I can tell you that is absolutely not the right terminology.
No.
For it.
No, and apologies to Harvey and everyone else, but he was wrongly wrongly labelled as that. And actually, as soon as you're pigeonholed in that as a child, that has quite dramatic implications of how you're treated, how you're taught. And so that is also part of his backstory. And it's a really, really nice documentary. So I'm going to recommend that to people to watch, Like Harvey, Like Son. But do badders, what would your parent, if you were crewed by your dad, this could be a nice little topic for people to send in. Like, my dad would just have glasses of wine at every aid station, which could be worse. Definitely could be worse. But what would your dad do if you were crewing, or what would you do if your dad was crewing you for a run that is, day after day after day? Because there's got to be some humour there.
Oh, absolutely. No, that's a good question. Good question.
So email us letters@badboyrunning.com. Now, our next guest, we're going to get into it because this is an episode that I've been wanting to record for about 3 years. And it's partly taken us this long to get in contact with them, but partly taken us this long to believe that we really should actually go for it and just try and interview them. I mean, this episode was just everything. They were just amazing guests and so insightful into the mindset and also the operations of being in the Russian system and the Russian system. So don't need to say much more than that. Take it away, Nick. So, listeners, we've got a really interesting podcast for you today. We've often kind of updated you on what's happening in the world of athletics in terms of the rules and in terms of the situation with doping and dopers and the authorities. And we're incredibly privileged today to be able to speak to Yuliya and Vitaly Stepanov, who were involved in the Russian world of athletics and actually flipped whistleblower to help bring down the system that's happened in Russian sport. So welcome on the podcast today, Yuliya and Vitaly. Whee! How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having us.
Hello. Now, but before we go into your story, since we actually arranged to have this interview, I guess two major things have happened in the world of athletics and doping. One of them being the fact that America passed a law recognizing that systematic doping is illegal, so therefore they can protect people who turn whistleblowers. But the other one also being that Russian athletes can now compete in the next Olympics with a red top and the name Russia on the back, and that the terms have been brought from 4 years down to 2 years for Russia. How do those two things kind of affect your life, and also what do you think of those decisions?
Well, regarding the Rodchenkov Anti-Doping Act, I actually don't see how that would affect us directly. It is my understanding that in the future, when American government will be dealing with sports whistleblowers, it would be then that those whistleblowers can have same protections and same, when necessary, same financial help. When the government feels that they need to protect and provide help to those whistleblowers, I think that's going forward, not back to our case.
So it's not retrospective.
As far as I know, yes. I don't think any laws go back. It usually goes forward. And the second part regarding the decision, actually, both of us are positive about the decision. First of all, I would say that's not the first time the Russian state was sanctioned for their lying and for covering up of doping use. Unfortunately, it seems like it's a long, non-stop process, in which actually you could say that even the World Anti-Doping Agency and the International Olympic Committee have been trying to help Russian authorities to move forward, but each time they give them that hand of help, Russians don't take it. They continue to cover up, they continue to cheat, and they continue not allow to sanction those that were part of the system. But it is what it is, and in general, when we started whistleblowing, we were almost at a point when both of us felt that there is no doping fighting going on, at least in Russia and in Russian sports and what surrounds it. So even the decision from last week, I'd say it's a lot stronger than we could ever imagine. A lot better that we could ever imagine. The fact that the truth came out and There are people dealing with it. There are laws, sports laws that are changing, that are hopefully getting better, being better prepared going forward. Similar problems. So we are more positive about what happened. But on the other hand, I personally wish 4-year ban stayed, but it didn't.
And do you think there is a way to punish the state without necessarily punishing athletes who may not have been involved in doping, or who may have only been involved in doping because they were forced to be?
Again, this is a really complicated case. And initially, when the water code was created, it was based on the fact that as soon as a country signs an anti-doping convention, that means that their governments would follow laws and to prevent doping within their own countries. So the whole code is thinking that no state would cheat on such great level as Russian state was doing. And of course, those lawyers that were writing the code, when they realized that was probably their mistake, assuming that the states wouldn't be cheating. And again, they are the process now. When that part of the code has to be changed, and again, nothing is easy when all countries in the world get together and try to change rules, make it better.
Mm. Now, going back right to the beginning, with you, Yuliya, when you first started getting into the sport, like when were drugs first mentioned, and did for before that point, did you think that drugs were not part of Russian sports?
In my situation, I came to sport when I was 17 years old, and right away I started hearing from other athletes about doping. And of course I was new and I didn't know what is it. And I asked my coach what is it, and he explained me it's like vitamins for athlete, and like right now I don't need it because I'm just start running, and in future if I want to run fast and be a part of a Russian team, I need to use it like all other athletes.
And when you say all other athletes, do you mean within the team, or was it suggested that this was all athletes in the world?
I think, in my understanding, it was my coach was talking about all athletes on high level, like around the world, not just in Russia.
And if you had said, I whatever happens, I don't want to ever dope, would that have affected your career in terms of selection, support, and also being accepted into the community?
Of course, they are not not forcing you to take it. It's your choice. But if you don't do it for coach, it means you will not be running fast. You will not make team. And for coach, it's not interesting to train you, to coach you. Yeah.
Let me just add to that quickly. So for most of the running coaches that Yuliya dealt with, the whole preparation of elite athlete was based on the fact that recovery would be done with the help of steroids and other prohibited substances. So those athletes can recover faster and can do next interval workouts sooner and quicker as well. So they all counted on the fact that if you don't recover fast enough, if you don't do intervals fast enough, you're not going to be able to run those necessary times at the elite level. And there was, at least in Yuliya's journey, she hasn't met a single coach who said that I can get you to that level without prohibited substances.
And were and this might be something you don't know, but with the training plans then, because you mentioned about how you needed to take these drugs to be able to recover fast enough for the training. Do you think that the training plans that had been created were harder than, for example, training plans that are created in countries where people don't have those drugs? And do you think that's why you're almost forced into it?
I think they just didn't know other way how to prepare athletes, because all these coaches, they're very old, and most of them were athletes when they were young, and they were using, like my coach explained me, his time when he was running used much stronger doping, and he knew only how to prepare athletes from his own experience with doping. He didn't know how to coach athletes without doping, because you kind of need to have a plan in your head for long term, for long time preparation. And in his head, it was just how to prepare athletes with doping.
And what is the system like in Russia for the relationship between coaches and the centralized federation? Are coaches just freelance people who can coach anyone, and if they have a good athlete, they then become a more senior coach, or are the coaches essentially advised, controlled, and communicated with by the Russian Athletics Association?
Well, there are different types of coaches, obviously, the ones that coach younger athletes. But if you talk about the elite level coaches that had athletes that are part of the national team, national athletics team, all of those were paid usually by the Ministry of Sports, a Center of Sports Preparation within the Ministry of Sports, and also by a regional federation, athletics federation. So it was a complicated process, and if you start getting into that, it can take a long time, and it was actually really corrupted process as well. That the whole system would at one point allow one athlete to compete within Russia at national championships, or 3 regions at the same time. So let's say Yuliya, she was competing in one region, but at the same time she could compete for Moscow and for another region. And when she gets, if she won, it's like 20 points for that region at the national championships. But it's not only one region gets those 20 points. It's each of those 3 regions get 20 points. But how it was corrupted, when one single athlete would go to a training camp, let's say to Portugal for 3 weeks, actually the financing would come from 4 different organizations, from those 3 regions where an athlete is competing, and the Center of Sports Preparation within the Russian Ministry of Sports. So there is only one athlete, and he needs one financial assistance training camps, but that athlete would get in 4. There was often the system behind the scenes that were basically the other 3 parts of money would just get stolen, and all the coaches and sports officials were aware of that. Behind the scenes, they would arrange how everything would work on paper, so everybody could get an extra bonus.
Oh,
And was this like very open, or was this something that everyone knew was going on but just wouldn't talk about?
Very open. I very often to sign empty papers with my name, without numbers, without anything, because they didn't want to me see how much I should get for this training camp. They just give me empty paper, I sign it, and then they give me some money, but in real I don't know how much I should get.
But and you have to understand that everybody was fine with it because everybody was part of that corrupt system, and everybody was getting some extra payments. So it's just as long as they could agree how much they share with each other, everybody was fine with the sign and preparing those empty or fake documents. And even the Ministry of Sports of Russia, because again, so whoever was responsible was getting extra salary from each athlete. Yeah. And when you get a lot of athletes, and you get a lot of extra money doing things this way.
And during that time, how did you first start taking the drugs? Like, how was it given to you? And also, at the time, did you feel that you were doing something wrong?
In my case, when I was 19 years old, and I spent 3 months in the hospital, and I wanted to continue my running, and my coach asked my doctor about how he can help me to come back after my sickness. And my coach asked the doctor about start giving me the prohibited substances like steroids and EPO injections. And my doctor said it should help me to recover faster after my sickness, and also help me to do my training and fight with my sickness. Yeah, in my case, I was 20 years old when first time my coach did injections with testosterone. And I didn't feel like I do something wrong, because I believe this is helps my body, and everybody, like everyone is doing it. And yeah, I didn't feel that I'm doing something wrong.
And how did you physically feel from the EPO and the testosterone, and did you see like a big change in your training and your performance?
It's kind of hard to say, because you really don't know it was like drugs working, or you just was like believing that they're working. But like I say, other people who ask me, you feel the same. It's very hard to run, and the same pain, but your time is faster. When you do intervals, when you go to race, you feel the same, only your time faster.
And were you told what to say about? Did your coaches say you cannot tell anyone this, or you need to say these things if asked about whether you take drugs?
No, it wasn't like this. It was not secrecy. And, of course, he said it's not like I should go and like tell everyone I'm using doping. I'm using like prohibited substances. It's not like this, but it wasn't secrecy. It's like you just. In my understanding, it was like, now you are preparing for season, and now you are using like special vitamins for it.
And do you think? Oh, go ahead.
And if you ask about like talking to journalists, I'd say all of the journalists that we knew that covered Russian athletics, they were all aware of doping programs, because some of those journalists were actually the participants as well when they were younger. But obviously the journalists knew not to ask hard questions about it as well.
Yeah, they never ask journalists. Yeah, they never ask about doping.
And do you think the typical Russian member of the public, do they think that Russians are dopers, and do they think that other countries are dopers?
I don't think so, because when I was 14 years old and I was watching Olympic Games, I really believed that the Russian team, that those athletes, they become Olympian because they were training from young age and very hard. I was believing in it, but when I became a member of a national team, I understood how everything's works. Like, you don't need to come from a young age. You just need magical pills.
But if you ask about general audience, those that follow sports, like if I would read, the decision about Russian athletes from last week, most of the comments under the articles would be saying that everybody's doping and it's all politics. And Russia is just really unfortunate because there is a term actually in Russia, Anglo-Saxons, that's often used, basically English people. So it's always an excuse that, what is controlled by English-speaking people, and the Russians don't have enough influence in it. And this is what's happening. And the second part is all of those Western world countries, they can't beat us in competitions, so they try to get rid of us by creating those fake sanctions. But again, all of this is being spread through the media, from the Russian state-run media, and then people believe in it.
Yuliya, Yuliya, why? When you just mentioned there that you watched athletics when you were younger, and you had this real belief. How did you feel when kind of this truth was uncovered that actually everyone is required to dope? How did that make you feel, both in terms of what your expectations were of being an athlete, but also what it meant for your future?
Yeah, I think first time I feel like this is unfair, especially when I started working with Portugalov, and he told me like all athletes, not all, just like 5 athletes in the final in the Russian championship, they like completely dirty at national championship. And like in that moment I was sitting and like thinking, like all that time I was trying to beat these girls, but they like were completely dirty and it was impossible to beat them. Like, and I was thinking like this is like very unfair because like other athletes, they didn't know about this and they just try hard, but they cannot win or like be medalist because of the system.
And do you think there were any individuals who were just fortunate enough to be so talented that actually they got to the point of being successful without having to take the drugs and were able to continue clean? Or do you think the system wouldn't have allowed that?
I believe that athletes do exist, but they couldn't go on top because of the system, and they just didn't want to fight it because they knew they cannot fight it, and they just stopped their career.
But let me just add. So there are many events within athletics, right? If you ask about running, we didn't know a single female runner who was at the top level without steroids. We can't really speak about other events, But like I explained to you earlier about the whole system being corrupted, so even if you got to the top and you saw all this doping going on, but you also knew about this, the regional stuff and about the payments and all of these things, and you knew that you had to be a part of it if you wanted to go to training camps, if you wanted to have salaries. So even if you were clean, you couldn't talk about it because you were involved in other parts of the corrupted system.
Mm. And had
you'd be like an accessory anyway. Even if you were clean, you were still part of the system because you knew about everything.
Yeah,
that was going on.
Yeah, exactly. Because the corrupted system is not just doping; it's also financial corruption.
And had there been any cases of Russian journalists or Russian athletes in the past 15, 20 years prior to that who had tried to tell the truth or who had tried to change the system?
Yes, there have been people that even tried to go publicly, but all of those times where it was done within Russia, and by using Russian journalists, and often it would stop at the first interview.
Mm.
If it wouldn't come from the Russian Athletics Federation or sports ministry, it would come from the editors of that journalist. They would say, okay, we made a mistake. We wrote about problems, but we can't talk about these problems. So just forget about it and move on to the next topic. And so nothing was really happening when people tried to do something about it within Russia.
So when you then came to competing, Yuliya, where there are a couple of British runners, female runners, who they didn't win medals, they lost funding because of Russian athletes. Were you aware of the effects that your success was having on others, and was that something you felt sorry for at the time and bad about at the time?
I believe that all athletes using doping all around the world, and I start thinking maybe it's not true only when I start traveling to the border and meet with other athletes from other countries. And I remember one of them was Jenny Meadows, because it was 2011 and she was competing like every Diamond League, and she was always like winning or second. And I knew that we cannot go to Diamond Leagues because we are on drugs now and we are preparing for World Championship. But she was competing, and I was thinking like she cannot be on drugs if she's competing like at every Diamond League. Probably she's clean, and like when I told her like she's like not only her and other athletes, like how they're talking with me, how they're like talking with each other, it looks like they didn't hide anything. Like when you see like Russians, they like all together because they like one team and they have a secret, but others were more open, and it looks like they don't have the same system like it was in Russia.
But if you don't mind, but on the other hand, and again, we are not trying to make any excuses, and we do feel sorry for those unfortunate clean athletes that within athletics that never got to compete on the level playing field. But we have been hearing, like once Yuliya got to the higher level, to the national team level, she started hearing that, it's not just Russia, and maybe the coaches are right, because people are talking that, if you got a real big problem, you don't solve it within Russia, you go to DX. and you just have to pay more, and it would be solved. So you get to a point where it's like not just Russia is corrupted, but because the whole athletics is corrupted. And if you know that the whole athletics is corrupted, how what do you do within Russia? Again, it just got the higher you got, the more complicated it got, and you know the truth about the Russian Athletics Federation came out, and the truth about the DX came out as well, and you know some of the people are just pretty messed up, and they didn't care about any clean athletes, about fair competitions. It was just messed up mindset of of a corrupted sports official that's instead of making sports better is destroying it, the top.
Mm. And you mentioned how you couldn't compete at all of the diving leagues because of the testing. So what were the rules around which drugs you took when? Like how often would you take them, and how long would you then have to stay clear of races after that?
When I started working with Portugal, he explained me everything. He was preparing me for, I told him, I should have a few races in the end of May, international races, commercial races. And he was preparing me exactly for my first race, that I should be clean when I go to the border. And yeah, he told me these 5 days you took these drugs, then you stop, because your body needs to 35 days to be clean before your first race. Yeah, he was explaining me everything, and I was following his recommendations.
And I'm sorry, I'll add to that. So Mr. Portugalov was the head of the Russian Medical Commission, the person who was supposed to make sure that there is no doping going on, and instead he was doping most of the athletes at the high level, and he was making money on that. So because you had to pay bonuses, and the reason he knew how many days certain drugs are detectable, because he worked in the same building where the Moscow anti-doping lab is, actually one stair above of Dr. Rodchenkov and Moscow anti-doping lab. So within a few minutes he could. Mr. Portugalov could just walk to Mr. Rodchenkov and say, what's new on this drug? How long is it detectable in your lab? And Rodchenkov would say, so many days, 5 days. So Portugalov would say to an athlete, do this drug, but stop doing it at this point, because if you do it longer, then you would be caught. And one of the reasons why Mr. Rodchenkov knew how long it takes, because he was doing it himself. He would drug himself, and then he would see how long substance would stay in his body. So this is a pretty fair anti-doping system, right? and I'm joking when I make that statement, but that's how
yeah.
But that's how messed up everything was, and really nobody cared.
And so, how did you get caught then?
Because of my blood passport, that was 30 when they created the blood passport and they start collecting the blood. Russians were aware of it, but they decided to send few athletes with high level, hemoglobin and other things, and they came after that international races, and they was caught, was disqualified after that. And Russians believe that blood passport doesn't work, and they didn't really care how it's going on in future, because they were thinking only about medals. And in my situation, my first race was my very bad for my blood passport because Portugalov sent me this very bad signs, like very high level, like hemoglobin and other things, and my first race, and this is first my international testing was exactly for my disqualification. After that, they were trying to fix it. They were like telling me what should be my hemoglobin level. They were like testing my blood before I should have some other international testing, but it was already late.
So because this blood passport was created, but for the first few years, IAAF together with WADA, they were just collecting that data, and they weren't really sanctioning anybody. So the Russian officials got the impression that nobody would be sanctioned just based on the abnormalities in the blood passport. That would be used as an additional information to prove doping, but you still have to test positive. And it wasn't the case, because I believe at the end of 2011, actually WADA started to try to enforce that blood passport and started to ask Federation, okay, we've been doing this for a few years, we haven't sanctioned anybody, let's start doing something about it. So so the London Games are cleaner in 2012. So IAAF at the end of 2011 sends this huge list to Russian Athletics Federation, about 100 athletes. Basically, everybody who runs internationally, middle or long distance. And everybody is flagged, meaning that to one level or another, it's been proven that every athlete on that list has been using EPO. But it's a long list. You can't just sanction the whole team before London, right? Because that would be a huge scandal, and what is that? We're going to allow clean athletes to compete at London Games and no cheats? Let's just deal with it like sports politicians do. We take the list of 100, and at least in Russia we'll sanction 4 of them, which were not going to London Games anyways, and let all the other ones go, and then we'll see how the things will unfold after the games. And again, that I believe that decision was made together, IAAF together with the Russian Athletics Federation, which just, if it's just another way, you really feel for those that try to prepare without doping and try to compete clean, that at some points it just feels that those sports officials, they just don't care. They want to have this illusion that the best athletes are competing on level playing field, but it's simply, when Yuliya was competing, there was none of that. It was, a field without any fairness, essentially.
And why do you think you were chosen, Yuliya, out of that list of 100 people? Why were you one of the 4 people selected?
I think because I didn't win gold for Russia.
And she wasn't selected before the London Games. Before the London Games, it was 4 people that had no chance of going. So she still had a chance, so she actually got injured. So she was sanctioned after the London Games, because there was still, that pressure, you still have that list. And then you have next year, you have World Championships in Moscow. So, you still have to deal with these athletes. And that's actually something I was told happened at the end of 2012, when a lawyer from IAAF came to the Russian Ministry of Sports, and they just went for that list again, and they came up with the payments, and those that were Olympic champions or medal winners at World Championships or Olympic Games, there was just there were payments made from Russians to the IAAF, and that the second level athletes they became scapegoats, and Yuliya was one of those.
And did you? How much of that did you know at the time, or at the time did you just think, I've been unlucky and this is just the cost of doing athletics?
I didn't know much at that time.
But the chatter about 100 athletes and that were flagged, it's been going on since the end of 2011. So when we heard about it, it was both of us that heard about it.
Yeah, we just heard about it, but we didn't know.
Yeah, so it's like people are talking behind the scenes, but you never know how true it is, and obviously later, it was true.
And at that stage, how did you feel about that decision? Did you think that you were being treated unfairly? Did you still think at that time that Russia was being unfairly persecuted, or did you think that it was reasonable that you'd been banned at that stage?
This disqualification kind of helped me to understand how people really look at me and how they really what they telling me lie, what they were lying me before. Because before I believed them and I did everything what they told me, but then my disqualification happened and they start change their behavior. Of course, I knew they have many problems because now many athletes were disqualified. But I also think how it can happen only in Russia if all world they use the doping. Why it's only in Russia so many athletes who are disqualified? And this disqualification, it's give me a second chance to change my life and do things right. And don't believe these people and don't listen to them again and just be smarter this time.
And part of that, because the World Anti-Doping Code, it gives you a second chance. So you do get sanctioned, but usually if you get caught the second time, it's at least 8 years old or it's a lifetime ban. And so she's faced with the decision to continue to listen to those liars who would just tell you whatever whatever they think you want to hear, or you can go your own way and stop being part of the system. So I personally, as her husband, I feel that even though it seemed like a disaster at the time when it was happening. If you look back at it now, the fact that she got injured before London and she wasn't part of that completely dirty London 2012 team, and then half a year later that she was picked as one of the scapegoats, that's something that united us as a family, and I believe in the end those decisions are helping to make the anti-doping movement better.
And how were you treated by your kind of fellow athletes, and also and how were you seen by the general public?
Like a traitor. They call me traitor and liar.
But I'm sorry, are you asking when she was just sanctioned or when she became known that she's a whistleblower?
Oh, when she was sanctioned, did the general public in Russia, were they feeling sorry for you, and did they feel that you'd been cheated, or were you also blamed by the Russian media?
No, I kind of they still were supporting me. They kind of feel sorry for me, but they kind of was talking oh, it's all world against of Russia. Don't worry, just 2 years, and you are strong. You will come back. You will run again fast. You're a good athlete. This. It was.
And, this is something, that's how corrupted and unethical the whole system was. A lot of the top-level athletes, they're also employed by the Russian police, different regions of the police. And what it means is that you don't really work for the police, but you have to compete for them, usually once or twice a year, or again, different regions of police. And in exchange for that, you get a monthly salary, and you also get your, it's like you've been working all these years. And at the end, you also have a pension, a good pension, as a policeman. And usually those police competitions were happening at the time when most of the elite athletes would be completely dirty. So they would be going to those police competitions, and they will all be drugged. And, in the police, nobody cared as well. Even though in Russia, the distribution of steroids is a criminal offense. But, if it is running, and if it is running for a certain region in the police, then no reason to investigate and do anything about it. So that's just another level of corruption.
They seem to be like very willing to make to create the scapegoats from in order to sort of cover up the wider problems. How do were they relying simply on like you keeping your silence in order to not whistleblow? I mean, what are they hoping, like the bonds of not feeling like a traitor or something is the thing that's going to stop you from talking about this in a wider way? I'm just interested in whether there was any kind of pressure on you in terms of not saying anything or not doing anything that might blow it up wider in sort of the wider athletics community.
Because when athlete is sanctioned, they keep his salary, and during this 2 years ban, athletes still got money from the regions for whom he is racing, and he also got money from police. And athletes, they know if they start telling the truth, they just simply lose everything what they had before, and it's like they should find some other things to do, not sport, because they will be called liars, and they will lose everything.
And this is actually one of the first recordings that Yuliya made. Went to the head endurance coach of the Russian national team, and that's what he was telling her actually before she signed the papers on the ban. He starts saying that it's really unfortunate that this is happening, and it's all politics. There is no truth to that, but unfortunately, you would have to be banned. All of us will stay. We'll continue running our system, but we will continue paying to you. And also, when you come back in 2 years, because there is still time before Rio, we will make sure that you're still staying on the national team. We will help you prepare, and you'll be back on the national team. You'll compete in Rio. You'll win the medal, and before that, so just rest a little bit, have a child. We'll continue helping you financially. You will get all the money you need, and so it's like they're saying you can go public, but what are you going to achieve? And if you don't go public, well, this is what we give you for that.
Okay, do-badders, this is the end of part one. Head on over to listen to part two and the rest of the interview with Stepanov.
Fuck you, buddy.